Everyone, welcome to another episode of Founder Wisdom Podcast, Author Edition. Today we have David Hoff with us. He is an author and he's also the COO at EASI-Consult. He's been doing that for quite a while and has a lot of experience in the HR world. So David, welcome to the pod. Can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity, Charles.
Pleasure. So can you introduce yourself, give a brief introduction?
Sure. Oh, sure. I'm sorry. So just by way of background, I've been working in the HR area for 40 years, and half of that time has been as an internal person and half has been as an external person. And I think that gives me two very different perspectives. So I started in consulting, then I worked internally for 20 years, and then I've been an external for the last 20 years.
So how was your experience at Anheuser-Busch? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, pronouncing that right, but it's a huge company. So how's been your experience there? What did you learn?
Well, boy, I learned a lot of things. I learned how to survive in a large global organization. I had four different positions when I was there. The first was in their organization development department. And I would do different projects for different parts of the organization. Sometimes it was a plant expansion, a new plant startup, working with the sales organization. So, I got a chance to see a lot of the organization. Then I ran their leadership development function, and that's really where I kind of became interested in learning agility. And then I switched over and started up their international HR function when they were making a major push internationally. So literally traveled around the world and started up operations.
So tell us a bit more about agility.
Yeah, well, the definition that I use is you find yourself in a situation where you've never been before, you don't know what to do, and you figure it out. So people who are learning Agile are so valuable to organizations because they're capable. There's a lot of people that are capable, but there are some that are much better at being put into ambiguous situations or new situations, moving them from country to country. They don't know how to do anything, or they don't know they don't have all the answers, right? But they have a set of capabilities that they bring to bear that helps them be successful.
Okay, and is agility a synonym with adaptability?
Good question. I can tell you there are 9 dimensions by which we measure agility. So just thinking for a second, when I think of adaptability, the connection for me is around one of the dimensions, which has to do with flexibility. Okay.
How does one become flexible?
How does one become flexible? One is able to look at a situation and come up with a paradigm quickly to understand what's going on. And when they apply the paradigm and it doesn't work, they go back and try another paradigm and another paradigm until they have a way to explain what the relationships and the connections are. And they're not locked into, this is the way this works. Not necessarily. It's a different situation. We need to tweak that.
So a paradigm, do you mean some type of mindset?
You could say it's if you're now referring to Carol Dweck's stuff, it would be a flexible mindset.
Yeah, love his stuff. That's certainly one of the best books, mindset. when it comes to yeah, I consider myself a very adaptable person. I've been traveling the world. I've been experiencing a bunch of different experiences. I always keep my mind open, and I
Yeah,
think that that is what makes me a flexible person and a very
yeah.
agile person that can adapt to any situation. Is that like a basic mindset that is required to get a bunch of possible solutions and to first accept something and not panic and not block it off? Is that like the start when it comes to adaptability?
Yes.
And how can someone that has a closed mindset become more open?
Good question. So one of the things that we indicate is that um, there are 38 items or 38 components to the learning agility inventory, and they are all behavioral descriptions. So the good news is they are developable.
Okay.
It is, it's not easy for people to develop some things, and probably flexibility is a good example.
Mm. All right. So coming back to, I mean, you've done your 16 years at Anheuser-Busch, which is,
Yeah.
but should I say, in like that's a lot of time. That's like almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
Why did you stay so long at this company, and what caused you to leave?
Yeah, that's a good question, Charles. So I lived on the East Coast of the United States in Boston, and was moving to St. Louis, and had just gotten married, and my wife was the one that really pushed me and said, well, why don't you go and take a look? And they did a pretty good job at Anheuser-Busch of selling me once I went back for a second and a third interview. And so I said, well, I'll go for 2 years, and I want to get some internal experience.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be an external and to tell people how to do stuff, but unless you kind of live in the mess, you really can't talk about it
Yeah.
from that perspective. So I went out for 2 years, and then I kept getting promoted. So there were what I saw as opportunities to do things that were of interest to me. And then I kind of reached the end of that. Some other personal reasons I wanted to get back to the East Coast.
Okay.
So I left Anheuser-Busch and went to work for a technology company in Northern Virginia. Did that for a bit and said, I think I'm done with being an internal person. I want to go do this another way.
Interesting. And is it fair to say that, like, at the end of your time at Anheuser-Busch, like your last year, could someone in that in a similar position, would they expect like at least, I don't know, 150K per year in terms of salary? Because that's a big position, no?
It was more than that.
Wow. Yeah, that's like big bucks, So yeah, I guess you also wanted some type of change, and yeah, that's always something that human resources seek out, in companies. Is it fair to say that when a resource in a company is doing the same over and over again, you want that resource to move around in the company in different roles? What I mean, different departments. What could have they done to keep you, for example?
Oh boy, that's a great question. There were a couple of opportunities that I talked with them about relocating to Japan, to the UK.
Wow.
And that would have been of interest. I had 3 sons. I have 3 sons, and providing them with that experience, that would have been a way to keep me a while longer.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the same, because I'm about to have my children's, and sometimes I wonder if it's a good thing to move around with them. I think the answer to that is yes, so that they can experience various countries, various cultures. and
Yes,
they can learn adaptability and flexibility, so even if they
absolutely.
have to
Yeah.
leave their circle of friends, they can make new ones. But what has changed in HR since these days to nowadays in 2022?
Hmm. Uh, some things have not changed very much, and
Like
some
what?
things have changed. Um, I I struggle with many of the people that gravitate to human resources.
Okay.
They tend to focus on more tactical things.
Mm,
They don't tend to be strategic enough.
okay.
Um, it's not just HR people, but there are a lot of people inside organizations that are always looking for the next shiny object,
Okay.
and they want to go from this. It's if somebody's interested in learning agility, it's not something that you're going to be able to develop in a month or 2
Yeah.
months. You'll be able to make progress, but you've got to be really willing to make a commitment. So being able to build the support within an organization and the commitment to do something like that, there are very few HR people that have that capability. So what's changed? Oh man, I mean, you talk about what we've just experienced with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So I've read articles talking about companies and the CEOs of those companies now looking back and saying, if you had said to me, we are going to go from everybody in an office to totally virtual,
Okay.
there's no way I would do it. But there was no choice; they were forced, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge change. Now there's the whole issue of people saying, I was more productive at home. I don't want to come into an office.
Mm.
Just measure my results. And then the stuff that I've been reading about lately in terms of quiet quitting. So I'll show up and I'll continue to expect to be paid, but don't expect me to
To be productive.
a lot of discretionary effort, huh?
Yeah. To be productive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the mindset I had back in days when I was paid by the hour and I wasn't an entrepreneur.
Yep.
I mean, I did the
Yep.
job, right? But a good part of the day I spent watching videos on my iPod Touch and listening to music and, just sitting around to minimize my energy output. That's kind of the struggle of the hourly wage. And are you saying also, because you mentioned people being more tactical and less strategic, have you noticed that the younger generations are more like ADHD type of, more short term than long term?
I get into these conversations with my sons, and it's funny. I have 3 sons, and they're all very different. And with one son, he is very loyal to an organization, and I say to him, Philip, you got to do what you got to do, and you're under no obligation to stay in this place. And then I've got another son who's in sales and is very comfortable moving around, pretty not at the drop of a hat, but we don't have those kind of conversations. I talk to him about, you need to stay at a place for a while,
Yeah.
because you're going to get seen as somebody that doesn't stay.
Yeah, branch hopper.
Yeah,
Do you recommend that, generally speaking? Because I mean, there's these people that climb up the ladders. Yes, they're not perceived as good, generally speaking, but they could also be perceived by some as, oh, they're super ambitious and they still haven't found the right niche to handle their energy and their ambition. Is that how HR people look at CVs, or it's more like, oh, this guy's just not loyal, he's branch hopping around and we're not going to hire him for that reason?
Yeah, I don't think it's all one or all the other, Charles. I think that HR people or people that are evaluating candidates, they're going to look for at least an example of where they stayed and what their results were.
Yeah.
And how long is that? I don't know. But they are going to want to see some results. And I think you can explain, well, I went here, and there are legitimate reasons. But yeah.
So tell me why you decided to author a book.
Yeah,
Two books,
good
actually.
question. So let me talk just a little bit about my involvement with learning agility. It goes back to when I was at Anheuser-Busch, and part of what I was doing with being head of leadership development was, how do we accelerate somebody's development? If it normally takes 20 years to grow a general manager, how can we do it in 10 or 8? And so a lot of the focus had been on competencies. We need to figure out what competencies the person has, what competencies are required for the job, and we can make sure that we create a development plan that helps the person get the competencies that they don't currently have. The problem was when somebody would say, well, we don't have a job like that, but this is the role that we need. Nobody's done that. And so trying to figure out what the competencies are, what the skills are, we couldn't do that. And there was like this X factor, and this was work that was going on down at the Center for Creative Leadership. They called it learning agility. And when I would try and get Bob Eichinger and Mike Lombardo to give me a definition of it, they, I don't know, just go in a different direction. So I was really frustrated and not being able to measure it. Well, I reconnected with Warner Burke, who was on the faculty at Columbia, and that's where I went to graduate school. And so we both had this interest in learning agility. And I said to him, if you can measure it, I would like to represent it at EASI-Consult. So he went off with his doctoral students and did the research, 5 years to come up with these 38 items that measure learning agility. And so we then, my partner and I put those items onto our platform and turned it into 3 different assessments, a 180, a 360, and a self-report. And at that time, I said to Warner Burke, HR people aren't going to know what to do with this. I'm just being honest. And so we're going to have to write a book and tell them, you know, this is what learning agility is. There's 9 dimensions. This is what it looks like. And the 3rd section is, here's how you use it. Here's how you use it for selection. Here's how you use it for leadership development. Here's how you use it for succession planning. Here's how you use it for coaching. So it's a real how-to book. Then as we were getting adoption out there, literally around the world, I was finding that some folks just didn't know, how do I, so there's 4, sorry, yeah, I mean, if we're talking about performance risk taking, there are 4 different descriptors, indicators of performance risk taking: taking on challenging roles, engaging in ambiguous tasks, embracing work that's risky, volunteering for projects that involve the possibility of failure. So if you're trying to help somebody get better at those things, how do you do that? That's what the 2nd book is about. So we go chapter by chapter, dimension by dimension, and we help people look at which version of the assessment would be best, and then how do you develop each of those 9 dimensions.
How did you promote the book? Did you send it to existing customers? Did you use it in ads so that people could get an introduction? How did you promote it?
Yeah, I would say all of the above. I came up with a list of influencers, people that in my interactions I knew might have an interest in learning agility. I got involved in doing podcasts, like this, trying to get out to different groups. We have a newsletter that comes out every other month, and I write an article on learning agility every month, and that's out on our website. We send that out to, I think it's 15,000 people a year. I post things on LinkedIn. So, it's a variety of and also speak at different conferences. So a lot of different ways.
How did you first hear about EASI and David Smith? How did he get a hold of you?
Yeah. Well, actually, I got a hold of him.
Okay. That's
yeah,
good. That's being agile right there.
Yeah. Well, actually, he and I both worked at Anheuser-Busch, and I was the director of human resource development and selection, and Dave ran the selection department. So I was his boss, and then we went off in different directions. He went and started EASI-Consult. I did this thing in technology for a few years, and then we came back together. And I really didn't necessarily want to grow at a consulting firm, but he worked on it for about 6 months and convinced me to do it.
Pretty cool. Has the book attracted various customers so far?
Absolutely, yeah.
What type of people read that book? Is it like, let's say, VP HR at like huge companies, or like who reads that?
I think it's primarily people in talent management. So they could be involved in doing leadership development. They could be involved in doing coaching, succession planning. So I think all of those folks fall under the heading of talent management.
Interesting. And if you'd have tips for these people that, are struggling to manage a workforce that is not agile, that is quitting and is not being as productive as they should, these HR talent managers / recruiters, what would it be?
So give me the question again.
Advice for these folks.
About if their organization isn't agile, how
to install agility. Like, let's say if you had like 3 quick advice to give them on installing agility in their org, HR wise, what would it be?
Well, it's interesting. In the first chapter of the first book, I tried to kind of create some context based on some of the experiences I had with the total quality movement, continuous improvement. Those were whole organizational things that I thought by and large were not successful because it was too big a bite for an organization to take out of something or take on, and they failed. So for me, with learning agility, it's something that you could do with one person or 2 people, 5 people. Now, you can do it with a whole organization, but once again, that's a tremendous commitment. And I think that people need to understand what it is they're signing up for. So one of the things that I thought I was successful at doing at Anheuser-Busch was starting a lot of what I call little fires in places. So I would introduce things and they would take hold, and then they would grow. And then at some point I would try and connect things. Start small. I guess that's
very good advice. Well, thank you so much for the interview today. It's already finished. It was a quick one, but we've got lots of knowledge in, David. So thank you so much for your time. Where can people find out more about you?
You can go to www.EASI-Consult.com. That's our website. And then we have a lot of, we've got podcasts there that we've done before. People can look at those. There's articles that I talked about having written for our newsletter. There are links to other kinds of things. So that'd be the place to start.
Yeah, and for the book, you can find it on Amazon, Learning Agility, the Key to Leader Potential. So thank you so much, David. Have yourself a great day.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.